Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with another video for Weekly Shonen Jump Thursdays. So, before I get into our review of Boku no Hero Academia Chapter 147, just want to say, remember, like, comment, and subscribe for the YouTube channel. Just, so, not necessarily that so that I can keep making videos or anything like that, but just so I know that you're, watching, that you have that you have things to say about what I'm doing. And just that, you want to see more content. So, like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Also, find me on Twitter. I am always on Twitter. I've kind of, developed a little bit, I want to say, of an addiction to tweeting, because I hadn't ever tweeted before I started this channel. And now I'm, tweeting all the time. I'm tweeting every day. I'm on my phone. I'm on the laptop. So find me on Twitter. It's a great place to be if you're a manga, anime, or comic book fan. And I'm always there to talk, to, retweet, whatever. So find me there. Also find me on Facebook. The page is kind of blank right now, but I'm really sort of trying to use that Facebook page as a space so, I can talk with you fans on a more quick basis. And also just so that I can start posting, sort of short snippets of whatever, I've just finished reading a chapter and I can be like, whoa, this chapter was incredible. Whoa, this chapter was great. I thought this was awesome, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Just short snippets so that you know how I feel about something before I put out a whole video on it. So, those are the things. Find me on Facebook, find me on Twitter, and like, comment, and subscribe. So, the three things that I'm going to get into in terms of the sort of chapter will be, one, Iranaka, the sort of wall, the guy with the wall quirk who can sort of, the guy who can move, sort of, spaces that he's touching or whatever, right? Like walls and the ground and things of that nature. So I want to talk about Iranaka. I also want to talk about Toga because, right, Toga's back. She's cool peoples, great villain, really interesting character. Can, right, sort of, not necessarily shapeshift, but create a sort of mold of another person on top of her own person. So that's and that's an interesting ability. So I want to talk a bit about, what's going on there in this chapter. And the last thing I want to talk about is the end of the chapter, which is really, really neat, right? Because if I believe Twice was reintroduced and he seemed to have cloned Rappa, right? So I really, really want to see chapter 148 now because of that, alone. I want to see more of Rappa. I love Rappa. So I want to see more of that. So in the case of Iranaka, what we have is a character who's also sort of working double time, right? At least in terms of his quirk. Right, we have the fact that his quirk is sort of saying okay, I can confine people within a particular space by controlling the environment, right? But at the same time, he has he has taken a drug that's sort of allow his quirk to work double time, but it's very temporary, right? So in one way, Horikoshi does a really interesting thing here where he says, okay, quirks can work to sort of portray weakness and strength, but in this case, it seems that Iranaka is a character that whose quirk doesn't even necessarily allow him to do that work, which is interesting. So it might say something about his character, where he is, and if we sort of try to put that next to someone like a Kirishima, right, who has sort of gotten to the point where he's able to do that, where and come to that realization, right, that his quirk does work in both ways. But with Iranaka, it's he had to take a drug so that his quirk could do that sort of double metaphor sort of work, right? And that's really interesting because we're thinking about the drugs in this sort of story. The drugs kind of represent the individual with a quirk who couldn't really sort of either become a hero or a villain, really, because their powers simply weren't strong enough to do the things that they wanted them to do, so that they could accomplish the goals that they wanted to accomplish. So I think that if we're sort of working in terms of a parallel with Kirishima and Iranaka, we can say that Kirishima really clearly worked hard to get to a point where that one, he could realize that his quirk was can act as sort of a representation of his strength and weakness, but two, that his quirk can just work and without sort of the aid of drugs or anything like that, right? That it took a lot of hard work for him to one, come to this realization, but two, be able to do the work that he wants to do as a hero. So with Iranaka, we have the sense that he's just at a place where he probably was very weak, right? Where his quirk wasn't particularly strong, But once he sort of took the drugs, it was like, oh, like now I can sort of, falsely come to this place of realization and epiphany that Kirishima is at, but he comes to it falsely. He comes to it with the aid of the drugs. So it's a kind of hollow realization. It's a sort of hollow kind of epiphany, if you want to say. And that's why I think that that sort of parallelism really works well. And Horikoshi is doing really, really good, subtle sort of things in that sense, right? We have one character who's clearly worked hard. We see the backstory. We see what's going on with him. And then we have another character who's just kind of like, I'm really trying to work hard and I'm trying to do this stuff, but it's like, dude, like you just took like drugs to allow yourself to do this work, and you know that, and now you know that it's it's temporary and that it won't last. So you're ultimately going to fail because of that. Meanwhile, Kirishima on this side succeeds because clearly he didn't take no drugs, he didn't take anything to improve his quirk or anything like that. He just worked really, really, really hard and came to a realization that his quirk could do the work that he wanted it to do if he just worked hard enough, and if he came to the realization that his quirk was not only a source of his strength, but also sort of, constantly reminds him of a place of sort of weakness. So I did want to talk about, I can't remember the hero's name, but I think it was like Lockdown or something like that, or whatever. But basically, like, his quirk was that like he could sort of like pin a particular object or something like that to a point in space, and I felt like that was really interesting. I mean, like outside of like I believe living things or something like that. So I don't think that he can pin like people or anything like that. But that was pretty interesting. So maybe what he could do is, instead of pinning people down, he could pin like the clothes on like a hero or something like that down to a particular space. And then the hero would have to like either take off his clothes or stay in that space or whatever. So I think like stuff like that is like really interesting, because like the quirks like are kind of general in certain ways, but that generality allows for a depth, right? And I like that. I really appreciated that about that hero, and I also appreciated Lockdown, because he sort of called out Night Eye, and he was like, hey, like, you're the reason why we're kind of like in this mess, because apparently like he dropped the ball or whatever. And in terms of sort of being a leader and making sure that they weren't like trapped or whatever, or anything like that. So I think what's great is that like he sort of shows that when heroes are sort of working together, it's not just like, oh, everyone's just gonna follow this hero and not say anything and just kind of stay in trouble or whatever. He's like, no, like, you have to be able to, like, if you're gonna be a leader, you have to be able to take criticism. And I think that that's cool that like sort of Night Eye is like, okay, like I am the leader, but also sort of have to accept that like I'm like culpable in the sort of mess that they're in at the moment. Like, so that's good stuff. I like that, and that's subtle because it's very quick. It happens very quickly, but all of that is conveyed through that small kind of moment of an exchange between the Lockdown guy and Night Eye. So I also wanted to talk about Toga. So Toga, cool character. I think I liked her pretty immediately. Like, she's just like, that cool, like sort of like yandere kind of character that's just like, whoa, like, like she kind of freaks you out a little bit. But that's a great character, because like you want to see what sort of the depths of her sort of psyche are. You want to see like what she's willing to do and what she isn't willing to do, because because it's like we understand that like she clearly has a capacity for like obsession and love and things of that nature. But we want to see just how far that will go. You want to see just how far those feelings will go with, those feelings of like, oh, I want like, chaos and treachery and all of those things. So like I want to see more of that, more character development for Toga. I'm really interested in seeing that. And I also think that just like her, her ability is pretty cool, right? We still understood that like her ability was cool, that the fact that she could like take blood, I think like ingest it, and then, sort of make a mold of a particular person like over her own person, right? But I think what I loved was like her, agility and her flexibility and all those things. I don't know if we we saw that when she had transformed into that other student during the the hero sort of like application like arc or whatever, and like that was cool, like because that person was very agile. But now we know that Toga is very agile. So like so she kind of reminds me of Stain in that way. And I think like that was something like, one, the fact that like Toga doesn't ingest blood, right? Like is very like as like very much a nod to Stain. But her agility and the fact that she's using a weapon and things like that, and her fighting style is very reminiscent of Stain's fighting style, right? Where Stain is very concerned with like making sure that like, okay, I got to make sure that I get some blood. Once I get the blood, I can stop this person from moving, and then once I stop this person from moving, I can kill him, right? But Toga is like, she's also, you know, having sort of fun with the battle, with the chase and things like that. But I think one thing that's also really interesting about Toga is sort of like her sort of, you know, reasons for doing all of this stuff, right? We're just like, okay, does she just want to have fun? Does she just want to see Deku? Does she just, you know, want, you know, entropic sort of like, you know, chaos and things of that nature, right? What does she want? And I mean, like, I think that, like, you know, we're not necessarily sure yet, but I do think that it does have a lot to do with, you know, her love of Stain and hence, like, her sort of mirroring Stain's sort of fighting style and Stain's sort of tactics in terms of getting blood and, you know, using that to her advantage and things of that nature. And it's sort of like really intense, like, you know, obsession with whatever, right? Stain's obsession with heroes and values and moral codes and stuff like that. And Toga's clear obsessions with like whoever it is that she's obsessed with at the day in the day of the week. So the last thing I want to talk about is Twice. So great that we're reintroducing him, because I feel like we got a bit of sort of backstory into Twice in an earlier chapter in Boku no Hero, and that was like a sort of real good showcase of Horikoshi as a writer, right? So now that we're sort of reintroduced to Twice, right, we have that backstory. We understand that, like, you know, like I think like Twice was the sort of hero that like had like the sort of backstory where like he like could clone himself like sort of infinitely, and like the clones sort of didn't realize who was like the real like Twice or whatever. So this Twice isn't necessarily like the original Twice, right? Like that, like I thought that was really interesting writing. So I think like even now I want to see if Horikoshi sort of goes into that story, moving into this fight, right? This battle with Night Eye and the cloned Rappa, because like I don't care, like maybe the cloned Rappa isn't as strong as Rappa himself, but he's probably still damn strong. So I'm really interested in seeing that battle and seeing Night Eye as like the, you know, the accomplice to All Might sort of really showcase his stuff, because like, you know, going against Deku to like you know, to test him or whatever, that's like whatever, like he's not, you know, going super hard or anything like that. But I'm really looking forward to chapter 148. I want to see this battle, because Rappa in a battle seems to be greatness, and I want to see more greatness. So that's gonna be crazy. Looking forward to that. So yeah, that's my review of Boku no Hero Academia chapter 147. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe if you want to be notified of more content. That's right. Like, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to be making more content. It's just that, like, so you can know when something comes out, you can get to it first, you can comment, you can like it, you know, and, you know, if you're already subscribed, you can go tell other people, like, hey, like, go check out Black Manga Critic. Like, he makes good videos. Subscribe, right? So, also find me on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. And, you know, if you want to talk, if you want to, you know, tweet and retweet and all that stuff, let me know. And find me on Facebook, starting now, right? I'm trying to put videos on Facebook. These videos will probably be linked on Facebook as well. So find me on that so you can be notified of more content on Facebook as well. So I'm the Black Manga Critic, and I'm out.